Are you the friend who's always being asked for health advice? Now imagine turning that passion into a fulfilling career with our Become a Nutrition Coach program. Step into a world where your enthusiasm for wellness becomes the heart of your own thriving business. With me as your professor and guide and coach on our user-friendly digital platform, you can learn from anywhere at your very own pace. It's perfect for your busy life. Envision empowering others to live their healthiest lives, all while growing a career you love. You're not just gaining a certification here, you're joining a community of like-minded professionals ready to support and celebrate with you every step of the way. So what are you waiting for? It's time to nourish your future and help change lives, including your own. Head over to nutritiouslife.com/BNC for a free class and a sneak peek of the program. Your journey to becoming a nutrition coach begins now.
Do you think about your heart health, your gut health, maybe your bone health? Probably many of you do, but many of us don't think about our eye health enough, and we should. Not only is our eyesight important, we all know that, but our eye and brain health are intimately connected. Hey everyone, I'm Keri Glassman. Welcome back to the Living a Nutritious Life podcast. I just wrapped a fantastic conversation with the incredible Dr. Tanya Altmann. Tanya and I have known each other for many years. I'm not even sure how long at this point, probably at least over a decade. We've run into each other in green rooms, such as the Dr. Oz show, and at other events. And recently, we connected because we're working together on the Lutein for Every Age initiative, a program created by Active Health Technologies to inspire and empower people to better understand how lutein and zeaxanthin can positively impact our eye and brain health throughout life. In today's episode, we talk about the importance of children's vision performance and brain health, specifically as they head back to school. We get into the importance of lutein and zeaxanthin for eye and brain health starting in infancy. Tanya shares practical tips for busy parents, and of course, we talk about nutrient-packed foods to get these nutrients in. You'll also want to check out healthyeyesandbrain.com for more info on lutein and zeaxanthin. Okay, before we begin, I wanted to share one more quick thing. On September 18th, I'm doing a live workshop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time called 3 Steps to Turn Your Passion for Nutrition and Wellness into a Paycheck. I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm giving away the entire Become a Nutrition Coach certification for free to one lucky person. That's a $5,999 certification for free, but you have to show up live. You will only be entered if you show up live to the workshop. Just go to nutritiouslife.com/events to register. Now, here's the podcast.
Welcome to Living a Nutritious Life. I'm Keri Glassman, a celebrity registered dietitian nutritionist. Join me every Tuesday on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms as I bring in some heavy hitters to share the latest in nutrition and wellness science. We dive deep into food, sleep, stress, relationships, and so much more. Your weekly guide to a happier, healthier, more nutritious life. Hello, Dr. Tanya Altmann. I am so excited to have you on the Living a Nutritious Life podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So as I mentioned in your intro, we obviously have known each other for many, many years. We have both been in our respective fields for over 2 decades. I believe you've been a doctor over 2 decades, right?
Yes.
Right? Okay. And in the intro, we've run into each other at different events in green rooms, but now we are so lucky to be working on a fabulous campaign together. So just a little bit more background. And again, I briefly touched on this in the intro, but just to give everyone a little bit more of a background of why we're doing this podcast today. Well, we could be doing it for a variety of reasons. You're an incredible pediatrician and you have so much fabulous information to share. But we did come together today specifically to talk a little bit about lutein and zeaxanthin. And that is because it is something that we've been having many offline conversations about because we are both working on this campaign together. We're working on this lutein for every age education initiative. And I've been working on it for over a year. You just came in. I was so excited when you came into the campaign. It was really built to inspire and empower people to better understand how lutein and zeaxanthin, really these nutrients, obviously we can find them in food, but how they positively impact eye health, brain health, why we need to know about them, why they're important from, I was about to say childhood, but not even childhood, from when we're pregnant through older adulthood. They're really important through every stage of development. So again, excited to be working on this campaign initiative with you and excited to have the chat with you today because it is such an important topic for people to know about, especially if you're raising children, but really important for all of us as we all age. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the importance of lutein and zeaxanthin. So I guess my first question for you as a pediatrician, how do you explain lutein and zeaxanthin to your patients and their parents? And also, I guess, when do you bring it up? And how do you bring it up? And how do you discuss like the most important aspect of these two really important nutrients?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to meet with families while they're pregnant, and I actually can give pregnant moms advice on nutrition. Of course, I recommend they all, follow your books and podcast, Nutritious Life, since you have information there. But when you think about lutein and zeaxanthin, it really goes back to in utero development, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And really critically important for that retinal and brain development during pregnancy. And so in addition to vitamin D and omegas and all the other things that we recommend that, our pregnant moms take, in addition, of course, to a healthy, nutritious diet, when you look at that in utero development, as the eyes develop and mature and the brain is when the most lutein and zeaxanthin is really like laid down. And if you look at child development, it really coincides with all those developmental milestones that we want kids to do, like the social smile and, they're sitting up and their first words and all of that. And so you can see what an important part it plays in brain development and retinal development and eye health. And especially now with the screen time conversations that all parents want to know, right? So even early on when we're talking about infant development and I'm asking them, are you breastfeeding? What formula are you giving? We talk about starting solids. I always ask about supplements too. And even for little ones, what you get in your diet is critically important. Most kids don't get enough of these important nutrients. And so I feel like every conversation I'm talking to parents about is about how they can get in these extra nutrients. And often it does include supplements, and lutein and zeaxanthin often play a role, especially with all the kids on digital devices nowadays. And of course, we try to recommend limiting that in the little ones before age 2 as much as possible, and only using them, really when needed, when parent monitored, and for schoolwork as you get older. But screens are everywhere now and they're a part of our life. And so we need more of those carotenoids to lay down in our retina to really filter all of that blue light for our vision and brain health. And so that's sort of how it all comes to play. No matter what age kids are, I feel like I'm weaving nutrition and supplements, into the conversation.
Yeah, so important. And I think one really important thing too that I like to remind people about is that the human body does not produce lutein and zeaxanthin. We have to get that from diet and or supplements. And you mentioned that many kids don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. Only 1 in 10 US adults and 1 in 11 kids eat the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And I think everyone obviously cares about their kids' nutrition, but I think it's almost become so common. Oh, my kids don't eat any fruits and vegetables. My kids are such picky eaters. It's almost become so common that I don't want to use the word worry, but I'm just going to use it. And then I'll go back, that we don't almost worry about it as much as we should. Now, the reason I didn't want to use the word worry is because I don't want people to be scared. Oh no, my kids aren't eating fruits and vegetables. Like, I don't want to cause fear, but I don't want it to be sort of brushed off. Oh, my kid doesn't eat fruits and vegetables, but they're growing fine. They're fine. So what I always say is I don't like people to be afraid. If your kid is, and you're the pediatrician, you can chime in on this more than I can, but if your kid is meeting those milestones, they are, yes, healthy, but they could be living, they could have more optimal health as they age if you do add these things in. So even if they are meeting those milestones, and, it can be really challenging and tough for parents to get in those nutrients, especially when they're worried about getting their kids to do their homework, and they're worried about, they've got so many things to think about. It can be really difficult. Those kids that are pickier eaters and don't eat their fruits and vegetables. So I say, I don't want them to worry, but I don't want it to be disregarded as, my kid's just one of those kids that doesn't get their fruits and vegetables in. And I think parents do that not because they don't care, but because, like I said, it's become so common for kids not to eat their fruits and vegetables. So again, it's something we just should focus on and always try to improve upon, no matter how good we're even doing. There's always room for even a greater variety of fruits and vegetables. So anyway, I just like to make that point that we don't get it any other way. We're not making it on our own. We really do need to get it from foods. And if we're not getting them from foods, we need to get them from supplements. And also, like you mentioned, because of the screen time now, we actually need that protection for our eyes even more. So anyway, just again, you could probably chime in on a lot of that even and comment even more than I can. But I just don't, again, I don't like parents, and I'm sure you have parents that come to you that maybe aren't thinking about it enough, aren't focused enough. And then you probably have parents that are really scared and worrying about it too much. And that isn't good either.
You're exactly. And we always see the extremes, right? Those are the parents that are counting everything and worried, and we're trying to get them to relax and say, your kids are growing and developing well. They're doing fine. Just keep introducing the fruits and vegetables, put them on the table. They will eventually learn to eat them if you get them involved in the kitchen and all of that. And then there's, the opposite of those that are like, we're so busy, we only can pack things that can, live out in the sun. It's over 100 degrees now in LA this past week. And so even when I was packing my son's lunchbox this morning, I was really worried what was going to happen to those strawberries and grapes. Eat. And so, we're always trying to do our best. And that's all you can do as parents is do your best, role model healthy eating. And I do feel like there is always room for more. As you said, there's always room for more improvement, and there's always room to add in supplements. And the other thing I like to, let parents know is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? So you can aim for the best every day. And let's say you do it every other day or a few times a week. That's still better than nothing. And of course, the items that your kids will eat, whether you're talking about the type of omelet you make or the vitamins you give them, the ones that they like are going to be better than fighting, and the ones that you buy that they don't like, right? So when parents say to me, what's the best vitamin supplement I can give my child? I'm like, well, the one that they're actually going to take every day. So yes, we want ingredients, we want to look at quality, but the taste and the delivery system really matters. And sometimes with kids, I'm a little more flexible because I want them to take it and enjoy taking it.
Well, by the way, it's the same thing with fruits and vegetables. People will say all the time, my kids only eat cucumbers or they only eat carrots, right? And you say, well, then keep giving them those vegetables. Then that's it. Then that's what they're going to have right now. You still want to expose them to others, but don't worry that that's when they just continue with those. If they have broccoli every night and that's the only vegetable they like, then they're having broccoli every night. So they're not getting they're not getting as big of a variation of nutrients from different vegetables, but they're still getting a lot. And that's better than just saying, okay, well, they had that last night. Just keep giving it to them. It's fine. They'll eventually start to eat more. And on that note, actually, I always tell parents to put out, if you can, and if you have time and you have the ability to put out raw and cooked vegetables each night, if you can, because sometimes the different textures and different types of vegetables in different forms actually can increase the chances of your kids trying. They might have a bite of the raw peppers, and then they might have a bite of the cooked broccoli. So at least they're getting a little more in, even if it's 2 bites. The other thing is we know that certain nutrients are better absorbed cooked in vegetables, and sometimes they're better absorbed and you're getting more out of them. They're more bioavailable in raw. So that's also nice for that variety. And then also, but more, it's just exposing them to more. And then I also say to parents, when it comes to getting your kids to eat your fruits and vegetables, put them out every single night, even if they do not touch them. Don't demand that they eat them because you need to let them control what they're eating. So don't demand that they eat them.
but put them out every night, even if they don't touch them. Because I always say they will eventually start to eat them, and they are still associating a healthy meal with vegetables. I always say they're going to be the kid that goes off to college that sits down in the dining hall that first night and puts vegetables on their plate, even if they never wanted to eat them at home. But generally they start doing it before then. But so you just want to keep putting them out. Just keep putting them out and eat them yourselves. If they see you eating them and they're on the table and you're eating vegetables, it becomes the norm, and they eventually do start eating them. Because I know parents can get so frustrated cooking when kids aren't eating them. So I always like to remind them, so just put them out. Don't stress about it. Don't talk about it. And you eat them and use them as leftovers in your lunch the next day. So they don't have to go to waste, but just continue to expose. But so important, again, lutein and zeaxanthin we know they're deposited in the macula of the eye. So super important for the macula of the eye. We also know that lutein is the predominant carotenoid in the brain. So again, super important for brain health. We also know that these antioxidants and these carotenoids are important for managing stress, sleep, and even emotional well-being. And they're also found in the outer layers of the skin. So there's many benefits. We're focused on eye health because of that concentration in the macula, lutein's concentration in the macula. But really, lutein and zeaxanthin play so many important roles. So just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, there was a great study done earlier this year by OmniActive, since we're talking about that. And it was really the first of its kind study where they took 60 kids for 6 months and gave them either a vitamin that had the 10 milligrams of lutein, 2 milligrams of zeaxanthin versus placebo. And it really showed some dramatic findings. So the kids that actually took the vitamin with the lutein and the zeaxanthin significantly increased blood levels of the vitamins. They had increased macular pigment optical density levels, which is really important. We can come back to that. Increased visual processing speed, which is something that we always talk about when kids are learning and studying at school. Decreased eye strain and fatigue attributed to digital device usage, which we know everybody has. And they also had significantly improved aspects of their cognitive health, including attention, focus, episodic memory, visual spatial memory, and visuospatial processing speed. And these are probably words that a lot of parents don't understand when we're talking about testing kids to see how they learn at school. And when we do the full neuropsych testing, if we're worried about ADHD or learning disabilities, these are all things that we test for. Right. And so to me, this study really showed that all kids will benefit with their brain health and eye health if they take a daily supplement that has the lutein and zeaxanthin in it.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about that next. I wanted to ask you about lutein and zeaxanthin as it relates to eye and brain health, and as that relates to academic success and the connection there.
Yeah, it all goes together and, and plays a role. And, often parents will come in and when they come into physicals in my office, I always try to start off with, what are the pain points right now in you and your child's life? What's going on that you need help with? So focus today's exam. And often they're talking about how their kids learn and development. They're talking about their kids' grade. They're talking about behavior, sleep. It might be memory. And then we kind of focus on that. But I feel like so much comes back to brain health. And so whether that's getting enough sleep, making sure you're getting enough good nutrition in your diet, getting enough supplements that your brain needs, whether it's the omegas, the vitamin D, the lutein and the zeaxanthin, the magnesium. We talk about all of that. We talk about ways to, organize your lifestyle at home so that way your kids have a quiet space to actually do their homework. Do they need help with their study? Do they need to break assignments up into smaller pieces? And so, it really is specific to the child and the family, but there are so many things you can do. So when parents say like, oh, my kid does fine, and that's okay. Well, what does that mean? And can we help so that way they can learn and develop and process information and remember better? And usually no matter what level your child is at, there are improvements we can make for their school and academic success.
So do you think parents have any misconceptions about eye health in general? I think that because I think that, oftentimes parents go in and like you said, they're talking about what's going on with their kid at school. They might talk about that they're a picky eater. They might have some specific other condition going on. But I think, they do the eye test. Maybe they need to go to the eye doctor,
right? And maybe they need glasses, but I don't like, are parents asking about specific eye health question? Like, are they asking those questions and are they connecting those dots? I know you're connecting the dots for them, but I'm just curious, like, are parents asking those things? Because I think of eye health as one of those things that people don't ask about enough. They're not paying a close enough attention to. And there is such a link between, we want to be concerned about our eye health in general, but we also know that there's that big link between the eye and the brain. So I don't think people actually, they think about it when they need to go get glasses. And to me, that's usually where it starts and stops.
You're absolutely right. And I think, for many parents, that's all they're worried about. Does my child need glasses or not?
Right.
Kids today actually want glasses because they're cool. And so that is something that, we often talk about, is that, whether or not you pass or fail the eye screen, and most pediatricians now do these eye screens where they take a photo of your eye starting at 1 year of age every year. And then the computer analyzes all these really cool things about your eyes to make sure that your eye muscles are moving together, that there's no cataracts, that there's no visual problem, whether it's farsighted or nearsightedness. So we can do a lot more now using technology, in addition to the, read the letters on the chart. And so we can start a lot younger and pick things up earlier, which can really often be fixed, if a child needs to go see an eye doctor because they have a weak eye muscle or they have vision problems at a young age. It really helps them so much. And I know I've listened to your podcast before, and so I know that you also had vision issues at a young age, just like I did. So I was one of those that got picked up in first grade, needed really strong glasses, and back then wore those thick glasses that I was always really self-conscious about. A lot about growing up. So when I got contacts in middle school, it was life-changing for me. And so to me, eye health was always so important. When I was in medical school, when I was in residency, it was something that I just incorporated into all of my physical exams and my education for families. Mm-hmm. And so, as you mentioned, it's not just can you see or not, but also how much time are you spending outdoors? We know that the sunlight is so important for kids' vision. Exercise, that they're not in dark rooms looking at screens all day long. And we learned a lot of this during the pandemic, that we had to make sure that kids took breaks, went outside, looked out the window, looked away from their screen, got up and moved around. And so all of that, is so important, and things that we try to remind parents about every day. But I think a lot of it is overlooked, because if you don't need glasses, you assume my vision's perfect. I'm fine.
Exactly. Right.
Until all of a sudden you do. And that's when everybody starts to pay attention and says, do I need any nutrition or vitamins for my eyes?
Well, and then there's also the other point, even if you don't ever need glasses, even if you don't ever need them until you need readers in your mid-40s, let's say you never need them, you still need to be focusing on that eye health, because there is that link to brain health. So we all need to be focused on it no matter what. We all want to keep our eyes healthy, even if we don't need glasses. And so that's something else I like to remind people of, which is obviously super important. But back to, you'd mentioned supplements, and we obviously are both fans of Lutemax 2020.
Max Kids, which is the child's version, which just has half the amounts of lutein and the zeaxanthin.
So, but I think parents are sometimes very hesitant and concerned about supplements, especially with their kids. So can you share any misconceptions about that, and why parents should or shouldn't incorporate supplementation into their kids' diet?
Definitely. I think that a lot of parents think, we eat healthy in our family, we don't need any extra supplements. Or, are these really real? Is there enough research behind it? And I think over the last 10 years, research behind, I want to say all supplements, but many important nutrients that kids, all ages, actually need. There really has been a growth in the studies and recommendations, which is actually why you're seeing many of these things added even to infant formula and to food products. We're seeing the importance of lutein now for infants, for toddlers, for school-age kids, in addition to adults, when you talk about macular degeneration and all the things that, I'm now worrying about now that I'm, hitting that age of life. And so I think it can be confusing, and it is really important to talk to your physician about everything that you're giving your child. And that's why, I do like to take time to take a full diet history with my patients and then really go through it and say, you know what, your child may not be getting enough protein. They may not be getting enough vitamin D, omegas, lutein, zeaxanthin, all of these things. And of course, I don't want to recommend that kids take 10 supplements a day. That's too much. So we'll often try to focus on what's more important right now in their life. And just to the abundance of digital devices in every child's life, you can't get away from them. I do find that the lutein and the zeaxanthin does get prioritized higher when I'm making that list of what I think would benefit kids to take every day or almost every day in their diet.
Right. And of course, then you have to look at it's always going to be individual based on the kid. You might have a kid that loves fish. And so it's really easy to incorporate those omega-3s in. That child wants to eat fish 2 or 3 times a week. So let's not focus on those omega-3s. Let's focus on the lutein, zeaxanthin. But if you have a kid that hates fish or whatever, maybe you're starting with that. So you have to, again, look at the full picture. But that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and the good thing with lutein, zeaxanthin, I think, is that, again, you are conquering a lot of different aspects through that one supplement. I mean, you're obviously you're attacking eye health, but you're also going to reap so many of these other benefits that go along with it. So like many of the others we already talked about.
And it's very safe. You can't really overdose it. As I said, many infant formula companies are now adding it as premium ingredients because the research and data is so strong on how important it is for brain and eye health, especially during those developing years.
So I want to switch gears a tiny bit. You'd mentioned screen time and how we can't get away from screens with kids, which we can't get away from screens as adults either. It's very difficult to get away from screens in general now in the year 2024. Anyway, what do you suggest for parents for managing screen time for kids? I mean, what is that suggestion? And you still have a pretty little one at home. So how do you manage it?
Yeah, I'd say I used to be a lot stricter before COVID than I am now. So, we know that screens are not healthy for growing, developing kids for a variety of reasons. It can delay their language. We know it can cause learning issues, mental health issues later on in life. So in my house,
it takes them away from being outside and moving around.
It does. And I want kids, they're in school so many hours a day now. And if they're hopefully in exercise activities and social activities, then they're not going to have a lot of time for screens. So you definitely want to keep your kids busy. So in my house, I really follow the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations for many, many years to really minimize recreational screen time, especially on school days. So my older boys who are now 19 and 17 were growing up, we actually had very limited, if not zero, recreational screen time on school days. So it was really what they needed for school. And then once in a while, we would watch something as a family together, which was more of a learning reality type show usually than something, fictional. And then when COVID hit, my older boys who were in middle school age at that time came to us and said, we need you to really look at changing the rules at home because this is how we're communicating with friends now. We want to be able to play video games with them. All of our classes are online. And so they actually came with a very well outlined plan, which I always recommend that my kids do when they're trying to change things at home with their parents' rules. And they outlined what they would like. And we said, okay, you're doing well in school. You're making good choices. You're participating and helping the family out. You're babysitting your younger brother, who at the time was in kindergarten. So I did do kindergarten, COVID kindergarten on screens.
Wow.
And so we allowed it and we really loosened our limits and they continued to do well. And when we went back to in-person school, I wanted to be the one who said, okay, we're going back to the old rules. And they said, hey, Mom, we're doing well in school.
Yeah.
We're doing all of our activities. We're making good decisions. You can't change the rules until we mess up. And I was like, okay, you're right. And my husband was on their side, actually. And so I was waiting for them to mess up so I could be strict. And never happened. So, I do think that
we all need to get your parenting playbook because that just sounded all really quite perfect. How that all just worked out. And
we have a lot of open conversations in my house. And when things don't happen the way they should, we just talk about it and we make changes. And so I think a lot of it is about, setting up expectations, your rules growing up. So if when your kids get home, you don't just hand them the iPad, they're not even going to know about it. They're not going to use it, right? You're going to go out and play. They're going to do activities. After homework, after dinner, you're going to say, hey, what do you want to do? Watch this show or play this game on your iPad. Let's set the timer for an hour and then we're going to read, and it's done. And you just set up those rules. Yeah. Now, I know it's hard. Parents are busy and you don't always have somebody who can be with your kids. And it's not perfect. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've been on podcasts and shows like I'm doing with you, and my son is on a screen in the other room because I don't want to watch him play with him. But then, right when I get off, I'll try to engage and be with him. So I would say no more than 1 to 2 hours a day of recreational screen time. They really shouldn't have other time. I think it's important to limit social media in middle school by a lot. Now, I'm actually not in favor of the holding it off until high school, and I'll tell you why. I think you need to be present and you need to teach your kids how to navigate that.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Best age.
They have to learn how to use it. They have to learn how to use it because it is going to be a part of their life.
And they have to learn how to be polite with text messaging and all of that. And if you're not teaching them for a few years, they're not going to learn. In high school, they're off on their own most of the time, and it's harder to guide and make changes.
Right. So I always think about it like it would have been like our parents saying to us, you're not allowed to talk to friends on the phone. Right? You're not allowed to get on the phone and talk to people. You're not allowed to answer the phone. You're not allowed to talk on the phone. Like, it's really the same thing. I mean, this is how they communicate. So you have to teach how to use it and when to use it and how much to use it, but they have to really be taught to use it. And if you just ban it completely, they're not going to learn those things.
Exactly. And I
am not a social media expert, by the way, for this. So I'm just chiming in as a parent here. My own opinion. This is not my expertise.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And again, it's child dependent, right? There's been so many older kids, teenagers that are having issues. Yeah. And we have to really evaluate and pull back and get them some help with their mental health, support, academics and learning. And so it does vary. But in general, I think as long as you can wait to introduce your kids, go slow, co-view with them, look at the text messages between friends, point out, you think that was the most appropriate thing that your friend said? I love pointing out the idiots, right? Because that's how you learn from them. With everything that your kids are listening to, did he really need to insult that other person? That's not really what you do when you're in a leadership role. Let's talk about how we could have said that nicer.
Absolutely. Right. And what's appropriate and inappropriate to put in a group chat and all those things, right? If they're not doing it, they're not going to learn it. But I totally agree with you that you have to be involved with that when they're younger. Absolutely. Okay. Back to lutein. Back to lutein and zeaxanthin. So we know that it's so important, obviously, for our eye health. It's important to create that healthy environment for our eye cells to thrive. It's important that lutein and zeaxanthin act as antioxidants, so they fight inflammation, reducing oxidative stress overall. All of those things, super important for, again, the development of kids starting in utero, all through, as we become older adults. So super important there. And we mentioned supplementation, but I also just do want to mention, we mentioned that you can get it from fruits and vegetables. I do just want to mention, before we wrap up the lutein zeaxanthin conversation, I want to just mention some of those fruits and vegetables that you can get it in so that we can hopefully get some of these fruits and vegetables on everyone's plates. So broccoli, I already mentioned broccoli, but broccoli really high in lutein and so many other nutrients as well. Something like air fried broccoli is a great thing for kids to try. I just think it sometimes makes it a little more palatable for kids. So many great ways. You can even make it a little spicy if your kids like spice, throw a little spice in there, make a little air fried broccoli. Corn was so delicious this summer, by the way, but at least in the Northeast here, so delicious. But corn, kids love corn, and corn is a great way to get in lutein. I always like to recommend organic corn if you can. Definitely a better option there, but love corn, and again, an easy one to mix in with carrots, which also has lutein, probably one of the most famous lutein foods. Eggs, kids love eggs. Many of them love eggs. And that's, again, something that's so easy to incorporate into their diet. And you're not only benefiting from the lutein, you're also benefiting from getting in additional protein and choline, another important nutrient for brain health. Leafy greens.
Can I just ask about?
Of course.
Parents ask me what their kids should be eating for breakfast in the morning. I think eggs are definitely at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Because I always recommend that kids eat protein in the morning. Again, one, you get all the other nutrients and vitamins because that will keep them full longer. And I also say no added sugars, no artificial flavors before noon. So I do have a specific regimen that I think is really important for brain health and for focus and concentration at school. And so whenever you can eat eggs, whatever you put in with them, even if it's, cheese on bread in the car on the way to school, or you're mixing it with vegetables, ideally in an omelet, get those eggs in. I'm not worried about kids eating too many eggs.
I 1000% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And scrambled eggs are also one of the best first finger foods for babies 6 to 9 months because it's soft. You can't really choke on a piece of scrambled egg.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's so funny. I always say I feel so good. Well, now I only have one at home right now, but I always feel so good when my kids go off to school with that, not only just having breakfast, but having that great, balanced, high protein breakfast. You just feel so good. For my daughter, it's generally, we do scrambled eggs, sometimes with some vegetables. Sometimes I'll even just throw in the leftover vegetables from the night before. So I'll make a little egg scramble with some broccoli or red peppers, or sometimes I'll even just saute mushrooms while I'm scrambling the egg. I just throw in the mushrooms there. And then I usually serve that with some berries for her. But I feel so good when she's had that in a full glass of water and taken her supplements. I always feel like this, we're starting the day right. Sometimes she's too rushed, but
I know. Well, so that was what I was going to say is my tip for parents is you can actually make scrambled eggs or omelets Sunday night, the night before, and just warm them up in the microwave, and it tastes your kids won't even know. So I do that because our mornings are very busy and I don't always have time to make a fresh omelet every morning or scrambled egg. So I make
It's also, I think people think of making eggs as a bigger cooking thing than it is. It really is not. It really takes 2 seconds. Like while you're doing something else, pouring your coffee, you turn on the pan. I mean, it really is pretty fast, but I do agree. If you are that rushed in the morning, you absolutely can make them the night before. And something else I like to recommend is making little egg bites. You can make these little egg bites in muffin pans, put those in the freezer or the refrigerator and just microwave those in the morning. And then they're kind of like the healthy version of those little Starbucks egg bites. So that's also something really easy you can do. Anyway, and also leafy greens. Again, people sometimes think of these eye health foods as only being those orange and yellow vegetables, but they are also, lutein, zeaxanthin are also found in leafy greens. So spinach, kale, collard greens. But I love adding, this was a big one I used to do for my son when he was in high school. I used to throw a whole lot of spinach into a smoothie every single morning because I used to load up a smoothie for him as if he wasn't going to eat for 3 days because he required so many calories. So I'd make this massive smoothie in the morning for him, but I always had in probably 3 servings of spinach in it. But anyway, that's a great way. And then of course, all the orange and yellow fruits and vegetables. So I just like people to remember that.
Exactly. And one thing I like to tell kids at their checkups, because often parents will say, oh, they don't like this, they don't like that, is I tell the child, you know that your taste buds change every day as you get older. Yeah. Something you didn't like, last year when you were 4, now that you're 5, it actually may not bother you as much. And guess what? Next year or next month, you actually might really like it. So you have to keep trying what you don't like every week or every month, because one day your taste buds are going to surprise you and you're actually going to like it.
I love that you've mentioned that because same thing. I tell parents that kids, it takes them 5 to 15 times of trying a food before they might like it. But also, even if they still don't like it at 15, go back to it in 6 months or a year. You got to keep going back to it. I absolutely agree with that. And I love that you talk to kids about that. By the way, all these different types of, ways to get in these really great lutein and zeaxanthin foods, you can visit healthyeyesandbrain.com, and there's lots of recipes and good information on lutein and zeaxanthin there. So I just wanted to mention that. And before we wrap up, anything that we haven't touched on in terms of setting kids up for success this year in terms of supporting their immune system, supporting their academic success, and their overall health, and just, and any other tips for kids or parents?
Yeah, I think as a parent, you're truly your child's best role model. So that means showing them that you're eating all these beautiful colored fruits and vegetables, getting them involved, Show them that you can put your screens away and, and talk and communicate and really spend time with them. Let them know that they can communicate with you. So, parents always say, my child doesn't want to talk to me. Well, I just go lay down on my teenage son's beds and say, hey, let's talk now. And I don't leave the room until they talk, right? They know that if they don't talk to me, I'm not going to get out of there. So, things like that. I think just be open. Always let them know that your pediatrician is there for help. If you have any questions, if you have concerns, even if we can't help ourselves, we have a whole list of resources for you. And that's really our job. And so I think that's important to start off at the beginning of the school year, because parents often think, oh, they're not doing well, but maybe it'll get better next month. I'll wait. Things don't get better on their own without making changes.
Love that advice. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, last question for you. What do you do to live your most nutritious life on a daily basis?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I do the same thing every day. I wish I did, right? I have all my supplements and I don't remember to take them every day, but I try. But I think every day, as you mentioned, I really try to get in those leafy greens in at least 2 meals. So this one, I put them in my omelet. And then I'm going to have a salad for lunch, because dinner, I actually have a meeting at the school and I don't know what they're going to serve us, right? So I think whenever you can get those fruits and vegetables, different colors in, try to do it into your routine. And then I really try to get outdoors and exercise every day. And some days it's an hour and a half and some days it's only 10 minutes, but that's okay.
Amazing. That's great. I love that. Greens twice a day, which I always recommend. So I love that. You're doing exactly that and getting outside and exercising. And I love when I can combine exercise with outdoor time. I mean, that's the perfect combo. So you're doing amazing. All right. No surprise though. Not surprised that you're doing great. What?
I follow Nutritious Life. Thank you.
All right. And also just want to thank Omni Active Health Technologies for its lutein for every age campaign. Again, check out healthyeyesandbrain.com for lots more great info there. And Tanya, it was so amazing chatting with you. Always great seeing you, even if it is like this over, in a podcast scenario. Hope to see you in real life very soon. But great chatting with you as always. Thank you so much for that amazing information.
Thank you. This was so fun, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.